20 fighting games, one Switch. Some of these you already know. A few will surprise you. This is the definitive list. The brawlers, the classics, and the hidden gems you need on your Switch right now. Blood. Lots of it. NetherRealm Studios has been making fighters since 1992, and with Mortal Kombat 11 they hit their absolute peak on Switch. The port is surprisingly competent. Smooth, responsive, and complete with all the DLC characters, including RoboCop, Rambo, and the Terminator. Yes, those are in a fighting game. It works. The real hook here is depth. MK11 isn't just fatalities and shock value. The customized system lets you build personalized movesets for every fighter, and the Towers of Time mode gives solo players an almost endless stream of content. The story mode reads like a big-budget action movie. Ridiculous in the best way. Scorpion and Sub-Zero have never felt better to play. The pacing is tight, the combos land with satisfying weight, and the defensive mechanics reward patience. Metacritic sits at 82. But the community reception is warmer than that. Reddit consistently votes this as the go-to MK experience on Switch. Pure, polished chaos in your hands. A soft reboot that had no right being this good. After the timeline-twisting chaos of MK11, NetherRealm reset everything. New timeline, new lore, new fighting system built around Cameo fighters. Assist characters you call in mid-combo to extend pressure or escape situations. It changes the pace of every single match. The Switch port took heat at launch for resolution and performance issues, and those criticisms are valid. But as a fighting game experience, MK1 offers something genuinely fresh. The roster is one of the most carefully curated in franchise history, and Invasions mode replaced the old towers with a board game-style progression system that somehow became addictive. Liu Kang as a god reshaping history is the best MK narrative since the original trilogy mythology. Homelander and Omni-Man showing up as DLC is peak 2020's energy. If you can tolerate the technical compromises, the actual fighting is superb. A worthy follow-up to 11, even if 11 runs smoother on the hardware.
Stay ready.
Madam Bow, it is a simple choice. Pay for our protection, or risk harm to this finest...
Before Guilty Gear Strive became the genre's rock star, this was the game that defined Arc System Works' identity. Guilty Gear X. Accent Core Plus R is a 2D fighter from 2008, and it still hits harder than most releases today. The roster is enormous. 25 characters, each with a completely unique playstyle and enough depth to consume hundreds of hours. Saul Bad Guy punches with reckless aggression. I Know swoops with aerial mix-ups. Testament controls space with dark summoning. Every match feels like a negotiation between two wildly different combat languages. The rebalancing in Plus R added new mechanics while preserving the classic feel, and the game's rollback netcode implementation is genuinely excellent on Switch. This is the version competitive players who love the old-school GG aesthetic keep coming back to. Metacritic scored the original versions in the mid-80s, but the dedicated community around this game is fanatical. If you consider yourself a fighting game fan and haven't touched this, that's homework. The finale. BlazBlue. Central Fiction is the ending of a storyline 6 games in the making, and Arc System Works swung for something operatically ambitious with it. A 36-character roster, each with mechanics so distinct they almost play like different games. Ragna the Bloodage's drive feeds on the opponent's health. Rachel summons wind and Sylphid to control space. Izanami refuses conventional combat entirely. What sets CF apart is its commitment to mechanical density. Drive systems, overdrive, exceed axle, astral heat finishers. There are layers here that take months to fully unpack. Nintendo Life called it one of the best fighters on Switch. That's not an overstatement. The special edition includes all DLC characters at no extra cost. which is a significant deal given the roster additions post-launch. And the visual novel mode is genuinely interesting for lore enthusiasts, not the usual throwaway story mode. If you're serious about 2D fighting games and want something that rewards dedicated study, Central Fiction is the mountain to climb.
どこで見たんだ?
What happens when Arc System Works gets the keys to 4 different universes? Cross-tag battle. BlazBlue characters alongside Persona 4 arena fighters. RWBY, under Night in Birth. It shouldn't work this well. The 2 versus 2 tag system is the engine here. Each pair shares a health bar, but active/assist mechanics create an entirely different strategic layer compared to standard 1v1 fighters. Calling your partner in for cross-combo extensions, using cross-gauge for bursts and supers. The system rewards creativity. The roster sprawls across franchises in ways that produce genuinely unexpected matchups. Hyde facing off against Yosuke. Blake Belladonna fighting Noel Vermillion. It has the manic energy of a crossover event that actually respects all its source material. As an entry point into Arc's fighting game ecosystem, Sauce it's friendlier than Central Fiction but still mechanically rich. Community reception is enthusiastic, especially from fans who follow at least 2 of the represented franchises. French Bread has been making underground cult fighters since 2002 with Melty Blood, and Under Night in Birth is the evolution of everything they learned. This is a 21-character 2D fighter built on a mechanic called the GRD gauge, a shared resource that fills and drains based on aggressive and defensive play, rewarding whoever pressures more. It sounds abstract. In practice, it creates a rhythm. Every match has momentum that swings visibly. Win the GRD clash and you get Vorpal, boosted damage and access to chain shift cancels. Lose it and you're playing defense until you claw it back. Nintendo Life ranked this among Switch's most well-rounded fighters, and the training mode here is extraordinary, one of the most thorough in the genre. The visual novel Chronicles mode is a full narrative experience. The aesthetic lands somewhere between gothic street fashion and anime fighting game, and it nails both. Criminally underplayed given how good it is. Metacritic around 78, but its fans treat it as a 95. SNK took a decade-long break from this franchise. The 2019 reboot was worth every year of waiting. Samurai Shodown runs on a simple philosophy. One wrong read costs you half your health, possibly your round. There are no elaborate combo strings here, no 40-hit juggle sequences. 2 or 3 clean reads and the match ends. The weapon flipping system means you can disarm opponents and change the entire combat dynamic mid-fight. Rage explosions, borrowed from classic SNK design, give losing players a comeback burst that keeps every match tense until the final second. This is a fundamentals-first fighter. Footsies, spacing, and patience matter more than any execution skill. Nakaruru, Genjuro, and the newcomers integrate seamlessly into a roster that feels cohesive and historically grounded. The SNK fighting game legacy stretches back to Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, and Samurai Shodown 2019 honors that legacy without being trapped by it. One of the most underrated fighters on Switch. Capcom has been making fighting games since 1987, and this collection is the proof of that legacy. Multiple complete arcade and console titles in one package. Capcom vs. SNK2, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Plasma Sword, and more, with rollback netcode applied across the library. That last part matters enormously. Capcom vs. SNK2 alone is worth the price of admission. It's widely considered one of the best crossover fighters ever made. With a ratio system that lets you build teams of 1, 2, or 3 fighters and 6 different groove systems that change the entire defensive and offensive toolkit. Building your team and groove combination is its own meta game. Street Fighter Alpha 3 adds another dimension. The V-ism custom combo system let players break the game in spectacular fashion, and it's still fun to watch and play today. This collection is a museum and a competitive toolkit simultaneously. For anyone who wants to understand how Capcom built the foundations of the genre, this is required study. Arc System Works looked at Persona 4 and thought, fighting game. Atlus said yes. The result is one of the best crossover fighting games ever made, and the Switch port in 2022 brought a whole new audience to it. The roster pulls from Persona 3 and Persona 4, and every character fights with their persona manifested behind them as a second attack layer. Yosuke's Jiraiya throws cards and wind slashes. Shadow Labris uses Asterius as a grappling extension. The mechanic gives every fighter a long-range option that creates spacing situations completely unlike standard fighters. The story mode is substantial. It treats its visual novel segments as canon continuation of the JRPG storylines, which Persona fans will absorb. Metacritic landed at 78 on Switch. Community reception skews higher. It's an accessible entry point into Arc System Works' design philosophy, while being approachable for players who love the Persona universe but have never touched a competitive fighter. Rare crossover that satisfies both fan bases completely.
Your scope!
They're playing for keeps!
JoJo's bizarre adventure as a fighting game was always going to be absurd. All-Star Battle R commits to that absurdity with complete sincerity. 50 characters spanning all 8 parts of Hirohiko Araki's manga. Every stand user, every memorable villain, every iconic pose recreated in a 2D fighter built by CyberConnect 2. The gameplay is built around heart heat attacks and great heat attacks. Cinematic supers that pause the match for full anime-style cutscenes that fans will recognize immediately. Taunts trigger in-universe references. Characters acknowledge each other with dialogue pulled from canonical confrontations. The fan service density is staggering and intentional. As a pure fighting game, it's not the deepest system on this list, but it doesn't need to be. The value for JoJo fans is unmatched, and the sheer spectacle of watching Giorno Giovanna face off against Kira Yoshikage in full animation is exactly what this franchise deserves. Metacritic around 73, but the community that cares about JoJo games is genuinely passionate about this one. Dotemu and Guard Crush Games brought back a franchise that had been dormant for 26 years, and they didn't play it safe. Streets of Rage 4 is the best beat-em-up of the generation. Not just the best SOR game, but one of the best the genre has produced. The hand-drawn art direction is extraordinary. Every frame looks like a living illustration. Axel, Blaze, Cherry, Floyd, and Adam each have wildly different move vocabularies, and the combo system has enough depth to reward players who want to explore it. The star move system lets you trade permanent health for screen-clearing attacks, creating a risk/reward calculation that changes how you approach difficult sections. Online co-op works well. The DLC Mr. X Nightmare adds survivalist mode and 3 more characters. Metacritic hit 84. The community places it among Switch's essential library games regardless of genre. This is a reunion that improved on every original while honoring what made those games matter. Axel Stone has never been this satisfying to control. Tribute Games made a love letter so precise it almost hurts to play it. Shredder's Revenge is built on the DNA of the 1989 Konami arcade game. But it doesn't just imitate, it expands. 7 playable characters including April O'Neil and Splinter, a full story mode with individual character arcs, an arcade mode for pure old-school runs. The moves come from the cartoon, the level design references 30 years of TMNT history, and the co-op for up to 6 players locally is chaos in the best possible sense. The soundtrack by T. Lopes, who did Sonic Mania, slaps consistently. Metacritic landed at 84. On Reddit, the reaction was effusive. This was the game fans of the 1989 original wanted and didn't expect to actually get. It sold over 1 million copies in its first month. Tributary nostalgia that earns every bit of its praise. Shell, yeah. Way Forward doesn't miss. River City Girls 2 takes everything that worked in the original and scales it. Bigger world, bigger roster, more enemies, more mechanics, more chaos. Misako and Kyoko return, joined by Marion, Provi, Hasebi, and eventually Kunio and Riki themselves. The progression system has real RPG teeth now. Buying skills, leveling stats, exploring interconnected city districts. The combat is faster and more expressive than in the first game, with command inputs for special moves that reward players who put time into the system. The humor hits throughout. The writing team clearly loves these characters. Voice acting is strong. The artwork style is distinctive and consistent, blending manga aesthetics with Western animation sensibility. Metacritic settled around 80. The beat-em-up revival that started with SOR4 found a worthy companion here. If you finished Shredder's Revenge and want more brawler action with a personality, this is the immediate answer.
For shopping.
Ooh, when you get there, you should try.
A game that was removed from every storefront for years because of licensing issues, then came back and reminded everyone why they missed it. Scott Pilgrim is Ubisoft Montreal's 2010 brawler, remastered and re-released in 2021 with all DLC included. The pixel art by Paul Robertson is legendary. Fluid, expressive, packed with visual references that fans of both the comics and the film will recognize instantly. The combat borrows heavily from River City Ransom, earning money to buy food and stat upgrades between stages, a progression loop that gives the brawling genuine momentum. The soundtrack by Anna Managuchi is chiptune perfection. Ramona Flowers, Scott, Kim, Steven, and Knives all play differently. The final boss fight against Gideon is appropriately climactic. For a game that spent a decade in licensing purgatory, us coming back this clean was remarkable. Metacritic around 83. The community reception was pure warmth. This was a game people genuinely thought they'd never play again. Not a traditional fighter. Sifu is Slowclap's 2022 brawler built around Chinese martial arts, specifically Pak Mei Kung Fu, and it plays unlike anything else in this genre. You play as a young martial artist hunting the assassins who killed your father, and every time you die, you age. Run out of lives and the campaign ends permanently. The age mechanic sounds like a gimmick. It isn't. Aging grants stat buffs but reduces your maximum health permanently, creating a mathematical tension that makes every hit consequential. The combat is extraordinary. Parries, deflections, takedowns, environmental weapons. The system is deep enough that learning each of the 5 boss fights feels like mastering a boss fight in a Souls game. Metacritic hits 79 on Switch. Reddit threads about Sifu are dense with technique discussion. It attracted a genuinely hardcore fanbase who treat each boss as a discipline to perfect. This is a thinking person's brawler. The art direction is clean and confident. One of the most original combat designs in years. CyberConnect 2 knows how to adapt anime. They built the Naruto Storm series into one of the best-selling anime game franchises ever, and Hinokami Chronicles applies the same approach to Demon Slayer. The results are predictably spectacular. Full 3D arena combat built around breathing techniques. Each character uses a different form, and the visual spectacle of watching water breathing or flame breathing rendered in real time is genuinely impressive on Switch. The story mode covers the original series up through the Mugen Train arc, with voiced cutscenes and enough narrative detail to function as a condensed retelling. The roster expanded substantially with DLC, covering the Entertainment District arc and beyond. Versus mode for local and online fights gives the game legs beyond the story campaign. Metacritic around 68, which genuinely undersells the fan experience. Demon Slayer audiences responded extremely warmly. As an adaptation of a beloved anime into a playable form that respects the source, this is among the best in its category. The newest anime adaptation on this list, and the most divisive. Bandai Namco's 2024 Brawler covers Jujutsu Kaisen through the Shibuya Incident arc, the peak of the manga's chaos. And the 2 versus 2 combat system is built around the cursed technique interactions that define the series. Gojo's Infinity makes him functionally untouchable unless you exploit specific counters. Sukuna's domain expansion shuts down entire rounds. The collaboration mechanics between your 2 fighters are satisfying when they click. The presentation, cutscenes, voice acting, the way techniques are animated, is genuinely excellent. What holds it back is content depth compared to pricier rivals. The roster covers the main cast adequately but lacks breadth. Critics were mixed around 60 Metacritic. The community is split. JJK fans who wanted an anime game got what they came for. Fighting game veterans found it shallow. If you love the series and want to play as Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, and company in combat, this delivers exactly that. Enway built something that the fighting game community didn't expect. A genuinely competitive Power Rangers fighter. Battle for the Grid is a 3 versus 3 tag fighter with full rollback netcode from day one, when most AAA releases still shipped without it. The tag system is snappy. Assists call in your other 2 fighters for additional hits, cross combos extend pressure, and team building strategy matters significantly. The roster spans the entire Power Rangers multiverse. Tommy Oliver as the Green Ranger alongside his White Ranger version, Lord Drakon, Ranger Slayer, with a Street Fighter collaboration adding Chun-Li and Cammy. For longtime Power Rangers fans, seeing these characters interact in a mechanically serious fighter is surreal. The presentation won't compete with a major AAA budget, but the gameplay is clean and the netcode remains among the best in the genre. Touch Arcade praised it specifically for the quality of the Switch port. A genuine surprise from an unexpected franchise. Maximilian Dude, one of the most respected fighting game commentators alive, called Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl a legitimately good platform fighter, not just a licensed product. That endorsement landed with weight. The game's movement is fast and fluid, built on a system that rewards aerial play and directional attacks in ways that feel influenced by Melee's legacy. SpongeBob, Oblina, Nigel Thornberry, Powdered Toast Man. The roster choices are chaotic and specific enough to suggest developers who actually grew up with these shows. The neutral game has real depth. Hitboxes are generous but not sloppy. The initial release lacked voice acting, which hurt it, but subsequent updates addressed that. Community reception started skeptical and softened significantly after patches. As a Smash-style platform fighter that isn't Smash, it does more right than most. The sequel built on this foundation. If you want a couch party fighter with characters that produce genuine reactions, this delivers.
The results are in, and
Brazil. That's where this came from. Pontual Games built Pocket Bravery as a love letter to the Neo Geo era of 2D fighters. Art of Fighting, King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, and released it on Switch in 2023 as an indie title that barely made any noise on launch. It deserves more noise. The sprite work mimics Neo Geo aesthetics with modern clarity. 9 fighters, each mechanically distinct, each representing a real-world fighting discipline. The guard break, boost, and counter-strike system gives the combat layers that rival titles with 10 times the budget. The story mode has surprising personality. The writing is unpretentious and fun. The training mode is thorough. Online works. For a team that size, the execution is remarkable. Metacritic landed around 75, which is fair but slightly undersells the ambition. This is exactly the kind of indie fighting game the community finds 5 years later and wonders why it was ignored. You don't have to wait 5 years. Play it now.
Oh.